The library was my space, and there was just so much.
To the Harbor Grace excursion with the boys to have a time.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. What a special invitation this was for me. I got probably more excited than all of you about coming here to be up here on stage with Ma-Nee. Just a little bit more so that you know who's asking all these questions of them. I am from Yellow Quill First Nation on my mom's side, Treaty 4 territory in Saskatchewan. I am Soto. My dad is Ukrainian, hence my last name Swidrovich. I do identify as two-spirit myself, queer, gay. I'm not really sure what my sexual orientation identity would be, but it's something that's not straight, that's for sure. And as was mentioned, I'm a pharmacist, and I teach pharmacy just down the street at the University of Toronto. And we were also just connecting in the green room before over drag, too. So the people who know me know that drag is very special to me. And just recently, I shared the other identity of myself, which is prescription.
What's that?
And so then I learned that Ma-Nee has done drag as well. And so one time in Montreal and 2 times in Thunder Bay as Elvis. So, I love it. Anyway, I will let you introduce yourself in the way that you would like to be introduced to everyone here, and then get to some questions.
Pardon?
Yeah, just introduce yourself however you want.
Okay. Well, they call me Ma-Nee Chacaby. Ma-Nee is my first name. It's my grandmother named me that when I was born, after she found out I was born. And then somewhere when I got older, went to school, they changed my name to a white name, which was Gladys. It didn't suit me, but it's not on my birth certificate, thank God. Not that I don't like that name or anything, it's just, it didn't seem right. I was born with Ma-Nee, so I went back to Ma-Nee Chacaby, and Chacaby is my grandmother's last name. I'm probably the only one that carries her last name, and I'm hoping one of my kids will continue carrying her name. And because once I'm gone, and if nobody takes my name, that's it. That's what I say. And I live in Thunder Bay. I'm also, I do lots of fostering with kids. I don't do that anymore. I do fostering with homeless people now. I look after them out on the streets, so I do that kind of stuff.
Thank you so much for that, and for doing that for our people, our relatives who may not have a roof over their heads at times. So that's really special and lovely. So getting into some questions about this lovely book that I know everybody has either read or read part of or is very much aware of. I have a couple sections of questions here for you.
Okay.
The first is, how did your understanding of Two-Spirit evolve over time, and how did your grandmother's teachings shape that understanding?
Well, I was 4 years old when I first was told that, my grandmother told me that you are a two-spirit child, but she said it in the language, not in the English language. So all my life growing as a two-spirit person, I didn't know anything about two-spirit until I went to Montreal, my first one. I heard somebody saying, two-spirit, let's call ourselves Two-Spirit. That's where the name came from. I can't remember the guy's name that mentioned it first. I know it was him in Montreal. He was part French and something else, and so he said that, and then everybody picked it up. All of a sudden, everybody was Two-Spirit. And I took it home and I said, I'm Two-Spirit. But in our language, it's Nijajijak, which means 2 cranes in one body. That's the explanation of that.
And how did your understanding of Two-Spirit evolve over time from that moment you were 4 to today?
Well, when I was 4, I didn't know anything about it. And 5, I didn't know. 6, 7, and 8. When I was with my friend, he was a boy and I was a girl, and we always spent time together looking at people, you know. And I wanted to order a girlfriend. So my sister ordered me a girlfriend. She was mean. You know, I thought I was really going to get a girlfriend, like a playmate, somebody to play with. She was a girl. I really liked girls. So I said to my sister, Alice, I said, can we get her? I pointed. She said, yeah, sure. In our language, we're talking. She said, I'll order it for you. And I'll order her. She's going to arrive maybe next week, maybe next 2 weeks. I don't know, she said. Oh, but when she does, you'll be very happy. And I said, yeah, okay. So I was pretty happy about it. Every day I waited by the doorway. And then my stepdad came in, and when they arrived, they said, there's a big box for you. And I said, oh. It was like this, you know. I don't know who's thinking about you, but you got something. Hurry up and open it. Everybody's saying, everybody gathers around the kitchen table, and I'm looking at everybody thinking, I don't want to open this. This is not for me. And then when I opened it, was a red dress and a white shirt. And I said, I didn't. Who? And then Alice comes, she said, I ordered that for her because she wanted a girlfriend on a picture. And then my dad says, well, you and I are going outside right now. So they went. I stayed in, and I was really hurt because I didn't know nothing about catalogs or whatever you call those things, where you order stuff from Eaton place. Yeah. You know, and I'm thinking. And then my grandmother says, did you know that she ordered a dress for you? Is that what you wanted? And I said, no, I wanted that picture, that girl. I want somebody to play with, to go places with. She went like that, you know. And now I'm doing the same thing. And yeah, it was like that, so I just kind of left it alone. I didn't cry. I took it like a girl. Let her. Came strong. I said, that's it. Okay. And I didn't think about getting even either, but.
Fair enough. But that's really beautiful and special, and I know that must have been kind of confusing and complicated, especially at that mindset of being a young person.
Yeah.
Can you speak about the role of traditional Ojibwe Cree teachings in your journey of self-acceptance?
A traditional? I don't know if there's such thing in our area, but the way that I, growing up, when I was 8 or 9, I started to, like I said, I started getting interested in girls, and then I started looking out for myself. I tried to, Elvis came into my life then, Elvis Presley. I heard his music first time in my lifetime, and I thought, that was so awesome, and I just started dancing. And then my dad got me these pants. He always used to take me when he was working in a CN section. He was a section man or whatever they call them. They work out there banging on that steel and doing stuff. So he took me along, and I was always out in the bush hunting, but where he was working. So I'd be doing something too. So he bought me this a hat, a section hat, like the railway men wore, and then he bought me coveralls, and then he folded them up. He says, "This is for you. Next time we'll go hunting, you're gonna dress that." And I said, "Okay." So that's how I was dressed, in this coveralls and my little funny hat, and just that's one part where I accepted part of me as learning about who I was. And then he started taking me to go camping and to go hunting. And my grandmother said to him one day, I want you to teach her how to hunt because she's not like the rest of the girls. She's different. I want her to survive on her own. She doesn't need people to guide her around. And she said, and I really don't believe in that men's work and women's work. She said, women can go hunting too. She said, I don't know where you guys got that from, she said. She was telling that to the people, you know, in fire pit training, whatever you call that. That's where we got our stories. Most of us First Nations people, we always hear stories from our grandparents or somebody, but always there's, I don't know about everybody, but in my family there's always a fire pit. And you listen. It's a bedtime story or it's a evening story for other people and sharing and having moose meat or fish or whatever it is.
Were there people during those stories over the fire who were able to share more information about Two-Spirit identity?
I never heard of them, no.
Yeah.
They used to just talk about the crane. My grandmother talked about the crane. She said, way back in my 7th generation, she said, there was 2 people, and I think that's where she belongs. She's got 2 people in her body, herself and her male side. So you guys have to accept her the way she is. You can't change her. That's what he told everybody. And I was sitting there when I thought they were talking about my other friend. He was a boy. And I was thinking, oh, I wonder, what are they talking about? 2 people. Oh, I got to see that, you know. I really wanted to see that person with 2 bodies.
Like shape-shifting or something
Yeah.
like that, yeah. I mean, it's too bad in some ways that folks weren't necessarily around or available in those conversations to share more information about being Two-Spirit. And I know that access to education about our identity there's a lot to be said about that. And you know, even for myself, I didn't have access to words and to terms, and so I didn't know who I was. I always told people I didn't know if I wanted to date Carrie Underwood or be Carrie Underwood. You know, and like, so what did that mean? And I didn't see that reflected anywhere. So it would be so helpful in all those family fire pit conversations and bedtime stories if our diversity was shared during that time.
I think that time, that's how they communicated. You know, they'll tell a story about fishing, and then they'll throw something else in the fishing story, or the moose story, or whatever stories they're giving out. Even family stories, like extended families and stuff like that. Mostly they wanted to train people, too, not to go with your first cousin.
That's fair.
I heard about that one. I
Very common.
my friend, my best friend I'll talk about. I'm not going to mention the name. The person might be sitting here somewhere. You never know. But the story that we were always looking out from, it's a rock cut. We thought it was the biggest rocket we ever climbed. Now when I go back home to that place where I was raised, it's not big. I was thinking, holy jeez, I thought that was big.
A massive cliff, yeah.
Yeah, a little cliff. But then, you know, I asked him one time, I said, did you ever see those people that live inside somebody's body? We should go hunting them, I said to her, or him. He looks, I heard that too. But you know, this person, I'm not going to mention name either, this person is they're drinking this weekend, maybe we should go peek and see what they do, these adults, he said. I said, okay. So we went out, we went looking around, and we saw people. And we saw a guy dressed in a woman's, and he was a male. And then he said, oh my God. He said, that's my uncle's brother's cousin or whatever. He said, dressing like a girl. I wonder. And then I said, well, let's look this is not that interesting. I said, let's look for someone that's got two bodies or something. I said, I was really determined to find that person in a two body, you know what I mean? But that's what happens when you're a kid. When you're a child, your head goes somewhere. I mean, your things that you hear goes in your head. It's not like you don't make it up or anything. You just hear these stories and you kind of connect with them, and then it sticks with you, and you're looking for that, whatever it is. And that's when somebody said to me, this guy, they say he dresses like a woman because he's a two-spirit person, they said. But they didn't use our word two-spirit. They used Nija Jijak. Remember, we didn't speak English. Yes. So and I said to myself, what is that? So I went to ask my kokum, my grandmother, one day. I said, what is Nija Jijak? And she told me, she said, oh, when you grow up, you're going to have a hard life with that, she said. And I said, oh? And then she said, you're going to have a hard time with that because now things are changing. People are changing. Way back in 7 generations of my family, I had so many people living together like that, and nobody had anything against anybody. Men lived together, women lived together. And I looked at her. Oh, that's okay, she said, don't worry about that. When you grow up, you're going to find out, she said. And do you remember that, do you remember when you came running home from visiting your friends that had this woman, this people were raising 5 kids, 5 little beds on the floor and then 1 bedroom? You told me that, she said. And I said, yeah. Do you remember those people? And I said, no. And then she said, yeah, you do. You were scared of that one of them. Oh, those are people. That's not a man you were scared of. That was a woman. And the other one was a woman. They lived together and they raised kids. And it was good, she said. That's how life is supposed to be. Not everybody, she said. Just love yourself the way you gotta love yourself, she said. That's how these people did, she said.
That's beautiful. And I mean, I'm still on a journey of learning myself too, and I know that Two-Spirit folks always had a role, like roles and responsibilities. It wasn't a coming out per se. I know that certainly in the scholarly world, one of my friends, Alex Wilson, talks about coming in to your identity as a Two-Spirit person, and how the term coming out, which is coming out of the closet, we would never have made that up because there's no closets and teepees.
No.
Right?
No closets in TP, no.
So there's no closet for us to come out of, right?
Just little holes where you can shove things out.
Yeah, yeah, really love that. A different kind of section or area of asking some questions here is that I know that in your memoir, your book, it recounts many painful experiences, including even abuse and discrimination. What helped you find strength and resilience through those times?
Those times? Mm-hmm. Before I became an adult, and then after I became an adult, I just kind of, I thought that's the way things were like for a while. I didn't say anything. I just accepted. What can I do? Can't fight the person that's bigger than you. Or you think, I did something wrong. I wasn't right person. Or you just think that you're not the person that you think you are. So they want to try and change you, and they beat the crap out of you because they can't have what you have inside your body, what they want to get rid of. That's what I used to think.
Thank you for sharing that. And when you found that you needed times to work on your strength or draw on the strength of others, who was in your life or your circle, or even whether past or present or future, where did you find a source of strength and determination, to keep going despite folks who might have behaved that way to you?
Well, I would say, what would my grandmother do in this situation? And I would think about that and how kind she was and how well she survived. She was really, really old. When I started looking after her, I was about maybe 13, maybe 12, I don't know. That's when I started helping her, looking after her, saving her from other people that were drinking. That's when alcoholism entered into our community, took over the lives of people. Even though some didn't want it, it just happens. They weren't forced, they just tried it and they liked it, and then some people just couldn't handle the way alcohol did to them. One of them was my mom, my real mom, the natural mom. My grandmother was my mom, always been my mom. I never saw her a different person. Then when I met my first mother, she didn't like me. I didn't like her. Eye to eye, we saw each other, and she didn't like me, I could tell, and I think she could tell I didn't like her either. It's not that I didn't like her, it's just that she was a stranger that I never met in my life, and not supposed to be my mom. So, but then I look at my grandmother, I love my grandmother. She was the kindest woman that ever raised me. But, you know, what was the other question you went along with?
Well, you know, I maybe take it to a slightly different step in relation to what you were just sharing. It sounds that like storytelling has been a big part of your journey, even quite literally with the book. What role has storytelling played in your own sense of discovery, acceptance, healing, whether that's receiving the stories of others and or you sharing yours?
Well, I learn lots from my Great Spirit. I go out in the community, I go out and talk to the trees. I sit on the trees. Sometimes when you sit down, you know, if you just take a few minutes of your life, go sit beside a tree, something will happen. One time I was sitting between, you know, the arms that come out and they go into the ground. I was sitting beside like this, and then I felt something vibrating. It was like the tree was kind of snuggling up to me. That's the way I felt. And I felt so safe in there than I ever felt anywhere else. That's when I realized, okay, I need to take away all my pain and get rid of it, you know. For a little while I didn't. I drank. I ran away from my hometown and ran away. I was married to this man that gave me 2 kids. Then we ran away, the kids and I and my brother. My mom was gone. My grandma died. My mom died. My stepdad moved away, took his kids. I had no support. And the person I lived with did all those things to me, and so I finally had to run away, and this man told him that he was going to kill me for what he was doing. Torturing somebody is not good. So anyway, that I didn't hate him for that either. I just saw violence in him. I didn't like that, and I didn't want my kids to witness that. I didn't want them to grow up to be like him. So I ran away, left my dog. I was sad when I left my dog, but I couldn't take my dog on a train.
No kidding.
And you know what? From the train from Long Lac to Geraldton, we walk. That's a long walk for a woman with 2 kids and a pack sack. And a guy helped us. He was a teacher in Umbabaka, where I was raised. He was teaching kids, but he was going home because something was happening seriously at his home in Toronto area. So he helped us carry the pack sack.
That's wild, and it seems like a story that many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit can relate to in some way, whether it was their story or someone in their life. I know that my mom shared similar experiences to that. You mentioned, as a younger person, learning about Two-Spirit in your own language and being told that your life was going to be difficult. What advice right now, in the here and now, would you give to young Two-Spirit people today?
What would I give?
Yeah, what advice would you give to a Two-Spirit youth today, whether they are 4 or 10 or 16, 20?
What advice I would give them?
Yeah.
Love. Love yourself. Look in the mirror and love yourself. It took me 23 days to love myself, to finally really, really love myself. Yeah, it's easy to say, I love you, it's easy to say that. But do you really feel that in your stomach, in your heart, in your head, in your brain? Do you really, actually, really, ever really love yourself?
What do you think brought you to that point? We're taking so many years, and to finally reach that point, was there one final piece that allowed that to happen, or?
Yeah, one day I woke up in the morning, I was looking in the mirror, and I didn't like myself. I finally realized I didn't like myself, because I was trying to dress up and trying to dress, I don't know. And then I look at my body, and I have so many scars, my legs and all this place, and and then I said, I don't like me. I don't like my body. I don't like the way I look. I just didn't like myself. I don't like my hair. I didn't, So, and then finally I started to work on it, thinking, how am I if I'm gonna, I didn't want to be helping people. That just came. Everybody sort of like, I'd be walking, all of a sudden somebody be walking beside me. It was like I'm dragging people or waking them up and say, come on. That's how I felt.
They're drawn to you.
Yeah, they were drawn to me somehow. I was picking them up somewhere, or they were picking me up, and So I look in the mirror and I said to myself, you gotta learn to love yourself, because you have so many people, young people. You really love young people. How can you love them and you can't love yourself? That was the question. So I look in the mirror and I said, I love you, Ma-Nee. And I went, who's listening? I look around all over, thinking maybe somebody put a camera somewhere.
You had a not-so-secret admirer, and it was yourself.
Somewhere.
Yeah, that's
Or
so
the housing people want to know what we do in your own apartment. That's what I was thinking. But anyway, it took me 23 days, and I started practicing. One day it just hit me, I really love myself. I look at all my skin and look at myself and said, yeah, I gotta love myself. If I'm gonna work with these people that are drawn to me, or the ones I'm dragging, or the ones I'm picking up, I said to myself, I gotta love myself.
I can't help but think of, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here,
Yeah.
right? RuPaul, I learned that from RuPaul every single episode. That's really wonderful advice for youth, and quite honestly for anyone, of course, right? And similarly, in that giving advice to folks, you've been such a strong advocate for Indigenous, Two-Spirit, LGBTQ+ rights. How has your activism been influenced by your own personal journey? Yeah, how has your activism been influenced by your own personal journey?
Just the way the things were. Like, it starts off like fighting for my rights. I'll give you one example. There was a time where the young people and I were coming together, going around different places, helping themselves, and just sort of being around them. One day we decided somebody decided that they tore down this old gas station. They took all the gas and all that stuff, but they left us. They didn't bother with where the where the standing, there's a roof, like it's a roof. Oh, my hand's moving. But it's a roof, and then it's just a roof, and then it got four corners where it holds that thing together. And they were going to spend, I don't know how many dollars, a lot of money, just to tear that apart because they didn't want people to sit around underneath there, because they didn't like the homeless people sitting there from the sun. They get a shade, and they were sitting beside Walmart area. There's a Walmart store, and the people come out, and so I was standing there. We had lots of carts all around us, and we had our signs there, who we were and why they shouldn't spend that much money just to tear that thing apart, and they could use the money like this, homeless people. They could spend money on that. They can help them recover if they want to recover. But then this one lady comes out of the grocery store or out of Walmart with her bag. She comes, I didn't know she was coming after me. So I was standing there, and all of a sudden she comes, "Hey, you." And I look at her. Me? "Yeah, you. Take yourself and your trash out of here. You guys are nothing but trash. Take yourself and take your trash out of here." And I said, "I can't. You go back where you come from. You don't even belong here. This is the land that I was born in," I said. "Even though there's a pavement here," I said. "You guys are ruining this place," I told them. "You go back where you come from." That's what I told them. And then all of a sudden the girls came running, the young, my helpers, all the helpers come. They pushed her away and told her to get lost. I was ready to fight. I don't think I would have done that. I never hit anybody. So. But in my head, I wanted to. And then I felt bad after I went home and prayed and asked forgiveness for behaving that way. And I didn't want to do that in front of my young people. I don't want to give them that kind of example that you can mouth back if you want. I'm trying to give them to respect themselves and let it go when somebody bothers you. Just leave it. That's the way I was taught. So.
Were there any Two-Spirit folks in your life or your circle nearby who you could use as a mentor, as an example of?
I had a lot of them.
Yeah.
I had some guys in Montreal that was one of my friends, and he died. But there was another lady in Winnipeg that I really admired. There's a lot. I mean, actually, there's a lot of them. A lot of people, even young people, because I see myself in them the way they are sometimes now, and I go, "Wow, that's something. Why didn't I do that when I was young?" You know, you go that way.
Absolutely. I know it's interesting how sometimes when we think about mentors, we assume the person should be older than you, right?
Yeah.
But not always. They can be, sure. What changes have you seen in how Two-Spirit people are perceived within Indigenous communities and within the general Canadian society, let's say? So what changes, if any, have you seen for how Two-Spirit people are perceived within Indigenous communities and within the general Canadian society?
Well, at the beginning, before I came out, I remember these people. They used to have dances, and we had dances, stuff like that. And regular people that were drinking and just going out and doing their own stuff, they would come to our dances, pushes us out of the way. They would take over our dance floor, man and a woman hugging each other and kissing and smooching, making fun remarks and, just that kind of stuff. So the gay people and the lesbians and the Two-Spirit people, you just kind of, you don't want to fight them. That's not what we were there for. But that's how they treated us then. I don't know about now. I haven't been around too many places to see that happening. I think it's changing a little bit. At least they're not against us. Before, too, in Thunder Bay, when people wanted to come out, they would go out of town. They would come to Toronto. They would go to Winnipeg, Vancouver, and you never see them again. They never come home until family's dead or something is happening. And so I used to wonder, where's all these people going? How come they don't come back? And then one day somebody said, I asked that one person one time, an older woman, I asked her, I know you know who I am. I told her, yeah, I know who you are. I've known that for a long time, she said. It's okay, don't worry about it, she said. I'm not going to tell everybody if you don't want me to. And I said, no, it doesn't matter. I said, they all know anyways, I said. They just don't want to confront me. They're treating me like, I was going to an AA meeting too. I really enjoyed going to AA meeting people, nice people, so I thought. And then when I came out, all of a sudden I didn't have very many friends. When I came out, all of a sudden I was leading the group that night. I was supposed to be opening it and leading it. And then I come in, hey, I come waltzing in there, and everybody's looking at me, looking so serious, thinking, oh, somebody must have died or something. So I didn't say nothing. And I just opened the meeting and told everybody, well, there's a big room over there, and there's this room. People can go that room if, and there was lots of people. So everybody tried to pile in that room. And there was only me and a couple of people that were supporting me. That's it. So I said, that's it, I'm not coming back. What kind of an AA is this? I said to myself. Seriously, that's what I said. What kind of an AA is this one where I can't even, I can't even be who I am? Where do they live in their heads? So I thought, no, I quit. And then I didn't quit. I just took the big book and the 12 and 12 and looked at it and get somebody to read it to me once in a while and, just learn it, what step 4 meant, step 5 and all that stuff. I went for treatment after I was sober 1 year. That was 1975. I quit, and I've been sober ever since. I quit the drugs. I quit everything. Except the regular cigarettes. I didn't quit the regular cigarettes for a while. I needed them to support me.
It's so great that you found some joy, it sounds like, in a spot like AA, let's say. And I think that there are many spaces now where inclusion is the goal, let's say. But I think that even when there's a space, let's say, or programming for what people call 2S LGBTQ+, if there's no indigeneity in there anyway, well, it's not really for 2S LGBTQ+, hey?
No.
So it's really neat that we now do have Two-Spirit-specific spaces. Even right here in Toronto, Two-Spirited People of the First Nations, a community center. There you go. Yeah, so wonderful. I see folks from the Community-Based Research Center Two-Spirit program here, doing Canada-wide gatherings. We have a they hold a Two-Spirit symposium every year. It's just been so wonderful to find strength and joy and belonging in a Two-Spirit specific space, which it sounds like didn't necessarily exist for you in your formative years.
Yeah, but it is now.
Yes.
Because when I came out, I just came out and I said to myself, well, if I get beat up, I get beat up. I did. I did get beat up a couple of times, but the last time was when I had the cops in the building that was they weren't really, they didn't dress like cops, but they were there for a while because I was getting threatening phone calls. And people said they were going to kill me. And then I had my cousins come all the way from Vancouver to deal with me and to fix me up because they said, you're adding one more thing for people to hate us. And I said, what's that? Being who you said you are now, they're going to hate us more. The more garbage you put out there, the more the people going to hate us, she said. I didn't know I was cause of that, but I didn't let it get to me. I took it. I took it like a woman, you know. And then, you know, and when I got beat up, yeah, I was in the hospital, St. Joe's, they call it St. Joe's Hospital. I snuck out of there. There was a policeman coming in. I know the policeman was going to interview me, and I felt he was going to pressure me to tell them who they were, so I just snuck out. And they didn't bother me. They didn't call me, hey, you got to come back, you got a disease or something. They didn't say that. I was just there because they fixed me up when I got beat up, so.
I really don't like that those things happen, but I'm so happy that you have been able to stay so strong and to share your story for folks to find strength even in your story, and mentorship, and to witness and take in the resilience that you have so wonderfully demonstrated. Which brings me to one of my last couple questions before folks in the crowd get to ask you a few questions too.
Yeah.
What do you hope that readers take away from this? Anyone putting this in their pocket and taking it home, what do you hope they take away from it?
I hope they pass it on to their friends and neighbors or whatever, or just their family, to tell them to talk about their lives together as family, and maybe share with each other, and maybe write their own little stories. It don't have to be big, it don't have to be, you know, just sharing their stories with each other, how they feel inside, and then someday this person reads it and they go, oh my God, I didn't realize I did that to her or him. That's the thing I'm trying to get at this. And I'm also trying to get at my First Nations people to start writing their own story, like the older ones, the older members, like the ones like my age, you know, and then the more you start writing, like I've lost a lot of my mentors already now, the ones that are, like in my group, they're a little bit older than me. In Thunder Bay, I feel like I'm the oldest member there as a lesbian person, but I don't see any other elderly person there that's like me. I see a lot of white folks and different folks that are like that. Right now, I live in an apartment, my own place, and I share it with all the people in the building, different places. You know.
Have you heard of any schools and like teachers using your book in their classrooms?
One person called me and said in Winnipeg they were using that as, what did they call it? People writing their essays.
Okay, like a book
I don't
study.
know how. Yeah. I never went to school, so. I mean, I went to school to grade 8. I mean, to grade 4. I went in Mbabaka, and that was it. And then I watched TV and learned all my ABCs correctly on TV, and then that's when I moved to Thunder Bay then. And then I went to school for 1 year, but I got really bored because I wanted to learn how to speak proper English. And they couldn't take me in the school because I was I applied too early, and they needed more from me than like going to school for the first time would be like, what are we going to teach her? What does she want to learn? So anyway, so I learned, I took somebody's place. They said, this teacher said to me, Ma-Nee, I got this space. Nobody's going to be sitting in it. It's been paid for by the government and by us, Indian Affairs. So you can come and sit in it. You can pretend you're that person, or you can just be yourself. And I went. So I said, okay, I'll be myself. And then I went to school, and I was learning. I ran away from math. I couldn't do math. You know, I couldn't do math, so I ran. But anyway, that was 1 year, so I learned lots.
You know, I was just telling my friend last night that I had to get 100% in my math tests in pharmacy because it could lead to fatality, right? So we needed to get 100%, so I couldn't run away from math, unfortunately.
I did.
Yeah. My last question for you is, I know that you shared some advice that you would give to other youth, to Spirit youth today, but if you could talk to yourself, your younger self, what would you say? What would you tell them? What would you warn them about, or get them excited about, or life advice to help your younger self get through what's yet to come?
Well, for one thing, I don't like what's going on right now, like people going up to our communities up north, digging around for things that they shouldn't bother, like Ring of Fire. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like people always digging for something. I don't know what they're looking for. I feel like they're always destroying the planet we live in. There's hardly any trees left across Canada. Because I ask people, you see many trees? They say no. And then when I ride on a plane, when we're riding, really, before we take off way up there, way up there, but when you could see, and I use my binoculars, and I could see, there's no trees everywhere. There used to be lots of trees in Ontario. Where did they go? And then, those are the kind of things that really bothers me. And another thing that really bothers me is they build buildings, and then they move away and leave them empty and heat them up with heat, and nobody's in it. Again, that bothers me. To me, what is wrong with these people when they do that? Why don't they shut off the heating system and save some of that energy so we don't have to fight for energy from other people or whatever it is, or we destroy our planet. We are destroying our own planet. It's our own fault. We don't stand up for what we see out there that's so beautiful. The Creator gave us this land and the water and the sky and the sun and the moon for us to enjoy. What we do, we destroy it.
You already mentioned the 7 generations a few times, and yeah, we need to be thinking, what are we doing right now for those next 7 generations? Eh? Yeah.